The tears blurred Harmony Reed's vision as she sat on the crude wooden bench beside the old mission bell, her white wedding dress pooling around her like a deflated dream. The bell's bronze surface caught the late afternoon sun, mocking her with its silent promise of happiness that would never come. She had been so certain about marrying Thomas, right up until she found him with the saloon girl just hours before their wedding. Wyoming Territory, 1878, was no place for a jilted bride with nowhere to go. The small town of Copper Creek had already witnessed her humiliation. Now they would witness her despair. Harmony wiped furiously at her tears, streaking dirt across her cheeks from her hands. Her carefully arranged hair had begun to fall, pins dropping one by one onto the dusty ground. "Madam." "Are you all right?" Harmony looked up, startled by the deep voice. A tall man stood before her, hat in hand, revealing sun-streaked brown hair. His face was tanned and weathered, yet his blue eyes held genuine concern. She recognized him vaguely, Jackson Zane, the quiet cowboy who worked at the Lazy S Ranch outside town. "Do I look all right, Mr. Zane?" Harmony snapped, immediately regretting her tone. Jackson shifted uncomfortably. "No, madam, you don't, and that's why I'm asking." Harmony sighed, the fight draining out of her. "Thomas left me at the altar, ran off with Daisy from the silver dollar." Jackson's jaw tightened. "Thomas Fletcher is a fool." "I'm the fool," Harmony said, gesturing to her dress. "Standing here in wedding finery with no husband and nowhere to go." "Where's your family?" Jackson asked, still standing a respectful distance away. "Back east. I came out here to teach at the school last year, met Thomas 6 months ago." Harmony laughed bitterly. "Thought I'd found my future." Jackson looked at the bell towering above them, then back at Harmony. Without a word, he stepped forward, reached up, and gave the rope a firm pull. The bell rang out clear and strong, its sound echoing across the small town. Harmony stared at him in shock. "What are you doing? There's no wedding." Jackson shook his head. "That bell doesn't just have to ring for weddings. Sometimes it can ring for new beginnings." "What new beginning could possibly come from this humiliation?" Harmony asked, even as something about his gentle confidence made her heart stir. "Don't know yet," Jackson admitted. "But seems to me a woman brave enough to travel alone to Wyoming to teach children deserves something better than Thomas Fletcher." For the first time that day, Harmony's lips curved into a small smile. "You don't know me, Mr. Zane." "No, madam, I don't, but I'd like to." Harmony looked up at him, really seeing him for perhaps the first time. His clothes were worn but clean, his posture straight and proud. There was kindness in his eyes that Thomas had never possessed. "My wagon's just over there," Jackson said, nodding toward the street. "Let me take you back to wherever you're staying. No lady should have to walk through town alone after a day like today." Harmony hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." As Jackson helped her into the wagon, she cast one final glance at the bell. Its bronze surface gleamed in the setting sun, and suddenly it seemed less like mockery and more like possibility. The ride to the small boarding house where Harmony had been staying was mercifully brief. Jackson helped her down from the wagon with gentle hands, careful not to damage her dress further. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Zane," Harmony said formally. "Jackson," he corrected softly, "and it was no trouble at all, Miss Reed." "Harmony," she offered in return. "Harmony," he repeated as if testing the name. "It suits you," she almost laughed. "Not today, it doesn't. Even instruments that make beautiful music sometimes hit a sour note," Jackson said. "Doesn't mean they can't play again." With that, he tipped his hat and returned to his wagon, leaving Harmony to wonder at the unexpected poetry from the quiet cowboy. The next morning, Harmony awoke to whispers and stares as she made her way to the schoolhouse. News traveled fast in a town the size of Copper Creek. Several mothers pulled their children close as she passed, as if jilted brides were contagious. Harmony kept her head high despite the humiliation burning in her chest. "Miss Reed?" Harmony turned to find Jackson Zane walking toward her, leading his horse down the main street. "Mr. Zane," she acknowledged, conscious of the watching eyes. I was wondering if you'd be interested in some fresh eggs, Jackson said, indicating a small basket attached to his saddle. My hens have been productive lately. Harmony felt a surge of gratitude at the ordinary conversation. That's very kind of you. It's nothing, Jackson replied, just being neighborly. A few of the onlookers drifted away, disappointed by the mundane exchange. Jackson leaned closer. Thought you might need an excuse to talk without all the gossip, he said quietly. Thank you, Harmony whispered. It's been difficult. Town folk have short memories, Jackson assured her. Something new will catch their attention soon enough. Until then, I'll just have to endure, Harmony said, straightening her shoulders. Jackson studied her for a moment. You know, Miss Reed, there's a social at the Peterson farm this Saturday. Might do you good to attend, show folks you're not hiding away. Harmony's first instinct was to refuse. The thought of facing the entire town, their pitying glances and whispered comments, made her stomach clench. But there was something in Jackson's steady gaze that made her reconsider. Will you be attending, Mr. Zane? She asked, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. I will if you will. Then I suppose I shall, Harmony decided, surprising herself. Jackson's smile broadened. I'll call for you at 6 then. As he tipped his hat and led his horse away, Harmony realized she was smiling too. For the first time since Thomas's betrayal, she felt something other than humiliation and grief. It was a small, fragile feeling, but it was there a spark of possibility. The schoolroom was mercifully full of children too young to understand the adult drama unfolding around them. They greeted her with their usual enthusiasm, eager to show her their slates and newly learned letters. Teaching had been Harmony's refuge since arriving in Wyoming, and today it served that purpose more than ever. As the children filed out at the end of the day, Harmony noticed a small package on her desk. Inside was a book of poetry by Walt Whitman with a simple note, "For new beginnings, Jay-Z." Harmony traced her fingers over the cover, warmth spreading through her chest. Thomas had never given her books, claiming reading was a waste of time. The thoughtfulness of Jackson's gift touched her deeply. By Saturday, Harmony had nearly convinced herself not to attend the social. The idea of facing the townsfolk, of seeing Thomas and Daisy together, was almost unbearable. She stood in her small room at the boarding house, staring at her best dress, a simple blue calico that brought out the color of her eyes. A soft knock at the front door downstairs made the decision for her. She heard Mrs. Holbrook, the boarding house owner, greeting Jackson and knew she couldn't hide away forever. When she descended the stairs, Jackson was waiting in the small parlor, hat in hand. He wore a clean shirt with a string tie, his hair neatly combed. The admiration in his eyes as he saw her made Harmony blush. "You look lovely, Miss Reed," he said simply. "Thank you," Harmony replied, "and thank you for the book. It was very thoughtful." "Did you like it?" Jackson asked, genuine interest in his voice. "Very much." Whitman has a way of making one see the world differently. Jackson nodded. "That's why I thought you might appreciate it, after. Well, sometimes we need to see things in a new light." The ride to the Peterson farm was filled with comfortable conversation. Jackson told her about his small homestead, the horses he was breeding, his plans to expand. Harmony found herself sharing stories of her childhood in Pennsylvania, her training as a teacher, her dreams of someday having her own school. "Why Wyoming?" Jackson asked as they approached the farmhouse, already lit up with lanterns and alive with the sound of fiddle music. "Adventure," Harmony admitted. "I wanted to go somewhere new, somewhere I could make a difference, and I'd read about how desperately teachers were needed out west." "Brave decision," Jackson commented. "Or foolish," Harmony replied, thinking of how quickly she'd fallen for Thomas's charm, desperate for connection in this new place. "There's a fine line between bravery and foolishness," Jackson said thoughtfully. "I reckon the difference is in how you handle what comes after." Before Harmony could respond, they had arrived. The yard was filled with wagons, and people spilled out of the barn where tables of food were set up and space cleared for dancing. Harmony's courage faltered. Perhaps this was a mistake. Jackson's hand covered hers briefly. "You've nothing to be ashamed of, Miss Reed. You hold your head high." With Jackson beside her, Harmony found the strength to enter the barn. Conversations paused briefly as people noticed her, but Jackson smoothly guided her toward the refreshment table. "Miss Reed, so glad you could come." Mrs. Peterson bustled over, her genuine warmth a balm to Harmony's nerves. "Thank you for having me," Harmony replied. "And Mr. Zane, what a pleasant surprise to see you socializing," Mrs. Peterson added with a knowing glance between them. Jackson cleared his throat. "Couldn't miss your famous apple cake, Mrs. Peterson." As Mrs. Peterson moved on to greet other guests, Harmony and Jackson found themselves approached by several of the schoolchildren and their parents. Their ordinary questions about lessons and ranch life eased Harmony's tension, and she began to relax. The moment couldn't last, of course. A murmur went through the crowd as Thomas Fletcher entered with Daisy on his arm. He spotted Harmony immediately, his face registering surprise at her presence and at her companion. Harmony felt her throat tighten, but Jackson's steady presence beside her gave her strength. "Would you care to dance, Miss Reed?" Jackson asked, perfectly timed. "I would love to," Harmony answered, allowing him to lead her to the dance floor just as the fiddler struck up a lively reel. Jackson proved to be a surprisingly graceful dancer for such a tall man. His hand at her waist was respectful but reassuring as they moved through the steps. "Thank you," Harmony said quietly as they circled each other. "For what?" "You know very well for what, Mr. Zane." Jackson's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Jackson," he reminded her. "Jackson," she agreed, finding she enjoyed saying his name. As the evening progressed, Harmony found herself genuinely enjoying the social. Jackson was attentive without being overbearing, introducing her to ranchers and their wives she hadn't yet met, making sure her cup was always full, partnering her for several more dances. It was during a moment when Jackson had stepped away to fetch them some cider that Thomas approached. "Harmony," he said, his voice low and intimate. "You look well." Harmony steeled herself. "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher." Thomas winced at the formality. "Come now, Harmony, we were to be married." "Yet we are not," Harmony replied, proud of her steady voice, "and I believe that's for the best." Thomas's expression hardened slightly. "Already found a replacement, I see. Didn't take you long." "Mr. Zane is a friend," Harmony said, "a concept you might not understand." "Zane's a nobody," Thomas scoffed. "A struggling rancher with delusions of making it big." "I could have given you security, position in this town." "Along with humiliation and betrayal," Harmony added. "No thank you." Thomas leaned closer. "I made a mistake. Daisy means nothing to me. We could still—" "Here's your cider, Miss Reed." Jackson had returned, his expression carefully neutral as he handed Harmony a cup. But she could see the tension in his jaw, the protective stance he took beside her. "Thank you, Jackson," Harmony said deliberately, taking the cup. "Mr. Fletcher was just leaving." Thomas looked between them, his lips tightening. "Don't come crying to me when his grand plans fail and you're left with nothing," he said before stalking away. "Are you all right?" Jackson asked once Thomas was out of earshot. Harmony took a deep breath. "Yes, better than I expected, actually." "He's not worth your tears," Jackson said, his voice gentle but firm. "I'm beginning to see that," Harmony agreed. She studied Jackson's face for a moment. "What did he mean about your plans failing?" Jackson looked uncomfortable. "I've been working to build something more than just a small cattle operation. I'm breeding horses, quarter horses with good bloodlines. It's a longer investment, but I believe it will pay off." "And Thomas doesn't." "Thomas Fletcher believes only in quick profits," Jackson said with a shrug. "He can't see past next month's earnings." Harmony thought about the careful way Jackson had spoken of his dreams on the ride over, the quiet confidence in his voice. "I believe your horses will be magnificent," she said simply. The smile that lit up Jackson's face warmed her through more effectively than the cider. As summer progressed into early autumn, Harmony found herself spending more and more time in Jackson's company. What began as occasional visits to the schoolhouse with fresh eggs or newly picked apples grew into Sunday afternoon rides, picnics by the creek, and walks after church. Jackson never pushed, never presumed, but his steady presence became something Harmony looked forward to with increasing eagerness. They talked of books Jackson was surprisingly well-read for a rancher and dreams and the changing seasons. Harmony shared stories of her family back east, and Jackson spoke of his parents who had died in a fever outbreak years before, leaving him the small ranch he was working to expand. "You should come see the horses," Jackson suggested one Sunday in late September as they walked back from church. "The new foal is finally getting steady on his legs." Harmony hesitated only briefly. Visiting a man's ranch alone would certainly set tongues wagging, but she realized with surprise that she cared less and less about the town's gossip. "I'd like that," she said. Jackson's ranch was modest but meticulously maintained. The small cabin was neat and solid, with a vegetable garden to one side and a chicken coop beyond. But it was the horse paddock that clearly had most of his attention. Several sleek quarter horses grazed in the fenced area, their coats gleaming in the autumn sun. "They're beautiful," Harmony said as Jackson led her to the fence. "That's Midnight." Jackson pointed to a black stallion with a small white star on his forehead. "He's my foundation sire. And there's the new mother, Brandy, with her foal." The chestnut mare stood protectively near a wobbly-legged colt who was the same rich color as his mother. "What's his name?" Harmony asked. "Haven't decided yet," Jackson admitted. "Been waiting for the right one to come to me." As they watched, the foal suddenly kicked up his heels and pranced around his mother, full of energy and joy despite his unsteady legs. Harmony laughed. "He's quite spirited." "Like someone else I know," Jackson said softly, his eyes on her rather than the horses. Harmony felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. There was something in his expression that made her heart beat faster. Admiration, certainly, but something deeper too. "Would you like some coffee?" Jackson asked, breaking the moment. "It's not as good as Mrs. Peterson's, but it's hot." "I'd like that," Harmony agreed. Inside, the cabin was simple but comfortable. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes on horse breeding, cattle ranching, and to her delight, several shelves of literature and poetry. "You really do read," Harmony said, running her fingers along the spines. "My mother was a schoolteacher before she married my father," Jackson explained as he put the coffee pot on the stove. "She taught me to love books. She would be proud of what you've built here," Harmony said, looking around the cabin that bore so many touches of care and thought. Jackson's expression softened. "I hope so." As they sat at his small table drinking coffee, Harmony found herself imagining what it would be like to belong here, to share this quiet life with this thoughtful man. The realization startled her. It had been only a few months since her heart was broken by Thomas. Yet what she felt for Jackson was entirely different from what she'd felt for Thomas. Where Thomas had swept her off her feet with grand gestures and passionate declarations, Jackson offered steady support and genuine interest in her thoughts and dreams. Where Thomas had made her feel wanted, Jackson made her feel valued. "What are you thinking about?" Jackson asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Harmony smiled. "Just how different you are from what I expected that day by the bell." "Is that good or bad?" "Very good," Harmony assured him. "Very good indeed." The first snow of winter came early that year, blanketing Copper Creek in white just before Thanksgiving. School was canceled for the day as the storm intensified, and Harmony found herself confined to the boarding house, watching the swirling flakes through the window. A knock at the door startled her. Few people ventured out in such weather. Mrs. Holbrook answered it and moments later called for Harmony. Jackson stood in the entry, snow melting on his hat and coat, his cheeks ruddy from the cold. "Jackson, what are you doing out in this weather?" Harmony exclaimed. "Needed to make sure you were all right," he said, stamping snow from his boots, "and to bring you these." He handed her a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside were woolen mittens, clearly handmade in a deep blue that matched her eyes. Did you make these?" Harmony asked in astonishment. Jackson looked embarrassed. "My mother taught me, said a man alone needs to know how to do for himself." Harmony slipped the mittens on, touched beyond words at the thought of Jackson's large, capable hands carefully knitting for her. "They're perfect," she said. "Thank you." "There's something else," Jackson said, his voice suddenly serious. "The storm's setting in hard. I'm worried about the livestock and the new foal. I need to get back to the ranch, but—" He hesitated, and Harmony waited, sensing there was more he wanted to say. "I've been thinking a lot about the future, Harmony," Jackson continued, his blue eyes intent on hers. "About what I want and who I want to share it with." Harmony's heart began to race. "I know it hasn't been that long since. Well, since things didn't work out with Fletcher. And maybe this is too soon, but the storm got me thinking about how life can change in an instant, and I don't want to waste any more time." Jackson took a deep breath. "I love you, Harmony Reed. I think I started falling for you that day by the bell when you were sad but still so strong. I love your kindness with the children, your passion for books, the way you laugh when something truly delights you." Harmony felt tears welling in her eyes, but these were entirely different from the ones she'd shed by the mission bell. "I don't have much to offer yet," Jackson continued. "The ranch is small and the horse breeding business is just starting to show promise, but everything I have and everything I am is yours if you want it." "Are you asking me to marry you, Jackson Zane?" Harmony asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am," Jackson confirmed. "Not right away if you need time, but yes, I'm asking you to be my wife." For a moment, Harmony was back beside that bell, heartbroken and humiliated. But then she looked at Jackson steady, honest Jackson, and knew with complete certainty that this was entirely different. "Yes," she said, her heart full to bursting. "Yes, I will marry you." Jackson's face lit up with joy, and he reached for her hands, holding them tightly in his own. "I don't have a ring yet," he admitted, "but I promise." Harmony shook her head. "I don't need a ring, I just need you." Jackson glanced at Mrs. Holbrook, who was pretending not to listen from the parlor doorway. "With your permission, madam, I'd like to kiss my fiancé." Mrs. Holbrook waved her hand. "Go on then, just leave the door open." Jackson's kiss was gentle yet filled with promise of a future together, of a love built on respect and understanding. When they parted, Harmony knew she had made the right decision. "I have to get back to the ranch," Jackson said reluctantly. "But I'll come for you as soon as the storm passes." "Be careful," Harmony urged, suddenly afraid for him out in the blinding snow. "I will," he promised. "I have too much to live for now." The storm raged for 2 days, leaving Harmony anxious about Jackson's safety. When it finally cleared, the sun sparkling on pristine snow, she was relieved to see him riding into town, looking tired but unharmed. "The horses?" Harmony asked immediately. "All fine," Jackson assured her, "including the foal. I've decided on a name for him, by the way." "Oh." "Promise," Jackson said, "because he reminds me of the promise of our future." Spring came late that year, but when it arrived, it brought renewal and hope. Harmony and Jackson were married on a mild April day beneath the same mission bell where their story had begun. This time, Harmony's tears were of joy as Jackson rang the bell himself after they were pronounced husband and wife. The town of Copper Creek turned out in force for the wedding, even Thomas Fletcher and Daisy, who offered awkward but seemingly sincere congratulations. Mrs. Peterson provided a magnificent wedding cake, and the schoolchildren presented their teacher with a handmade quilt for her new home. As Jackson helped Harmony into the wagon that would take them to their ranch, their home, she looked back at the mission bell gleaming in the spring sunshine. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you hadn't found me that day?" she asked. Jackson took her hand, his thumb brushing over the simple gold band he'd placed there just hours before. "I believe we were meant to find each other, Harmony, if not that day, then another." "Such a romantic," Harmony teased, leaning against his shoulder. "Only with you," Jackson replied, pressing a kiss to her temple before urging the horses forward, toward home. Life as a rancher's wife brought new challenges and joys for Harmony. She continued teaching at the school while helping Jackson with the ranch, finding unexpected satisfaction in learning to care for the horses. Their first year of marriage brought the success. Jackson had worked so hard for his quarter horses began winning at regional competitions, attracting buyers from as far away as Denver and Santa Fe. Promise grew into a magnificent stallion, the spitting image of his mother, but with the spirited temperament that had earned him his name. Jackson began training him personally, recognizing something special in the young horse. In their second year of marriage, Harmony discovered she was expecting a child. The entire town celebrated the news, with Mrs. Peterson organizing a quilting bee to create a baby blanket and the schoolchildren presenting their teacher with a handmade cradle built by one of the fathers. Jackson was overjoyed at the prospect of fatherhood, treating Harmony with such tender care that she sometimes had to remind him she wasn't made of porcelain. "I just want to take care of you both," he would say, his hand resting gently on her growing belly. Their daughter, Elizabeth Jane Zane, was born on a crisp autumn day as the leaves were turning gold. She had her father's blue eyes and her mother's determined spirit, crying lustily as she entered the world. "She's perfect," Jackson whispered, tears in his eyes as he held his daughter for the first time. "Just like her father," Harmony replied, exhausted but happier than she'd ever been. As Elizabeth grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered. Jackson's careful breeding program produced horses sought after throughout the territory, and they were able to add onto the cabin, creating a proper home with room for their growing family. Harmony found unexpected joy in the rhythm of ranch life, the seasonal cycle of birth, growth, and harvest, the satisfaction of work done with her own hands, the quiet evenings spent reading aloud with Jackson while Elizabeth slept in her cradle beside them. 3 years after Elizabeth's birth, they welcomed a son, William Jackson Zane, completing their family. William had his mother's darker coloring but his father's steady temperament, content to observe the world around him with thoughtful eyes. When Elizabeth was 6 and old enough for school, Harmony returned to teaching, bringing William with her each day. The little boy would sit quietly at the back of the schoolroom, reading his picture books while his mother taught the children of Copper Creek, including his sister. Life wasn't always easy. There were drought years when the creek ran dry and they worried about water for the horses. There was the winter of 1887 when blizzards nearly buried the ranch, and Jackson spent days digging paths to the barn to care for the animals. There was the scarlet fever that swept through the town, taking 3 children and leaving Elizabeth weak for months afterward. But through it all, Jackson and Harmony faced challenges together, their love deepening with each passing year, each shared struggle, each overcome obstacle. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Jackson surprised Harmony by taking her back to the Mission Bell where they had first met. The bell had been moved to a proper church now, the small town having grown enough to support one, but it still rang out across Copper Creek on Sundays and special occasions. "Remember that day?" Jackson asked as they stood beneath it, hand in hand. "How could I forget?" Harmony replied. "I thought my life was over, and instead it was just beginning." Jackson reached up and rang the bell, its clear tone ringing out across the town just as it had that fateful day a decade earlier. "What are you doing?" Harmony laughed. "There's no wedding today." Jackson smiled, echoing his words from long ago. "This bell doesn't just ring for weddings. Sometimes it rings for new beginnings." "And what new beginning are we celebrating today?" Harmony asked. "Every day with you is a new beginning," Jackson said simply. 10 years ago, I rang this bell because I wanted to give you hope. Today, I ring it in gratitude for the life we've built together." Harmony stood on tiptoe to kiss him, not caring who in town might see the schoolteacher and the rancher embracing beneath the bell. They had earned this happiness, this love, this life together. "Take me home, Jackson," she whispered against his lips. As they rode back to the ranch, Harmony leaned against her husband's shoulder, watching the familiar landscape roll by. Elizabeth and William would be waiting for them, likely having gotten into some mischief under Mrs. Peterson's watchful but indulgent eye. The horses would need tending, and there was bread to bake for tomorrow. It was a simple life, but it was rich with love and purpose. Looking up at Jackson's profile, strong and sure against the setting sun, Harmony felt a wave of gratitude for the broken heart that had led her to the mission bell that day, and for the cowboy brave enough to ring it for her future.